Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to call attention to a public health atrocity that is being ignored by the current administration and the current administration's continued failure to ensure justice for American citizens. As many members in this body will recall, in 2012, the New England Compounding Center manufactured and distributed non-sterilized injections to clinics and hospitals around the nation. After receiving those injections, more than 750 people nationwide developed fungal meningitis. To date, 76 people have died as a result. As you can see by the illustration to my left, this is a nationwide issue. The epicenter, however, of the outbreak was in Michigan's 8th district, which I proudly represent. More than 200 people became sick and 15 people died after receiving the tainted injection from a clinic in our district. Because of the reckless disregard for the health and safety of the recipients of these drugs, the Department of Justice secured 131 convictions against 14 individuals, including 25 counts of second-degree murder against the two main defendants for the deaths occurring in the 7 states. Although this outbreak happened almost 4 years ago, the consequences are still very real today. Just the other week, I was approached by a gentleman whose wife had died as a result of a lethal injection she received. It was, of course, heart-wrenching to hear the agony he went through and continues to deal with after losing his best friend and wife to this terrible tragedy. And whether it's someone who has lost a loved one, or a victim now living with chronic pain and sickness, or a family member caring for an ill victim, this is a national tragedy, and the people need to be heard. Not only have the day-to-day lives of these victims been irretrievably altered, they've also been financially ruined. Just to give you an idea, co-pays on some of the drugs for the treatments required for this illness are up to $5,000 per month. And despite multiple bipartisan requests from members of both this body and the Senate, the Department of Health and Human Services has rejected requests to waive rights to collect on Medicare liens they have placed on the settlement issued last year. That means that victims will get very little from their compensation funds. In fact, to this date, they have received not a dime. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, but now the Obama administration, through the Office of Management Budget, have blocked the ability of victims to get compensation from the Anti-Terrorism and Emergency Assistance Program, otherwise known as the AEAP for short. The AEAP was created utilizing funds from the Federal Crime Victims Fund, a fund specifically set aside to compensate victims of crimes. These funds get their resources from not taxpayer dollars, but through a special assessment on convicted criminals. They get it through crime fines, penalties, and forfeited bail bonds. Without any explanation, a bureaucrat at the Office of Management Budget has blocked the decision of the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General to compensate victims of this act with the Department of Justice itself, which the Department of Justice has recognized as a criminal. These are innocent Americans whose lives have been destroyed by criminals who will never meet them, will never feel their pain and hear their pain in their voices, will never see the irreversible damage they have caused. But, Mr. Speaker, I see it, and the 17 other colleagues of mine who have signed this bipartisan letter to the Office of Management Budget see it too. Justice must be served. If the Attorney General won't speak up to advocate for justice as secured by the hardworking Assistant Attorney Generals on this case, and the administration won't reverse this decision, then the citizens of this country and the victims and their families deserve to know why they've been. As a former prosecutor myself, for my local community, I understand full well that victims of crimes need an advocate to stand up for them. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will reverse the harm that has been caused by this act. But at the very least, we must ensure justice for the people, and we must hold those responsible accountable for their actions. I urge my colleagues to join me in this effort, and I thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.